and I would like to call this meeting to order. First item of business on our agenda, the additions or deletions to this agenda. Do we have any additions or deletions? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to our next item on the agenda, the approval of meeting minutes. At this moment, I'd like to approve the meeting minutes for September 8th, 2025. Will someone please entertain a motion to accept those minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Thanks, Kelly. So
second.
moved. Thank you. There's a second. Great. Thanks. The motion is on the floor. Do we have any amendments for the minutes? Great. I'm not hearing any. So let's move to accept the minutes. All in favor, just please raise your hand or say aye. Great. Thank you. Anyone who opposes, please raise your hand or say aye. Great. Hearing none, the motion passes. Let's move on to our next item on the agenda. Public comment. I was kind of anticipating perhaps some folks would show up, but I'm not seeing any. Lisa, we don't have any, right?
No, I don't see anyone.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great because now we can move on to our next item, item number 5, FIP policy draft report. Hopefully you had a chance to read what Kim sent out last week. And I think at this moment, if it's all right, Kim, I will pass you the mic.
Thanks, Daniel. All right. I know everybody's very excited to communally finish this draft report, hopefully today. That's the hope. So hopefully you had a chance to read through it. I struggled a little bit with how to format it. So I put some questions out to the group in my email. And so the first big question, and we'll pull it up on the screen once we go through some big picture thoughts here. How did the committee feel about the report summarizing into themes, feedback versus, I've seen some reports where it's more, pulled out quotes, naming specific entities to those quotes. I hesitated to do that only because I sort of saw the same things coming up. So I felt like that was going to be very repetitive. But I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't filtering the information. I mean, we all filter information through our own lens. So I wanted to be very careful that I wasn't filtering out anything. If we kept the framework that I set up of summarizing the themes, we would attach all the survey results, the comments, all of that. So folks can go through and look at the individual pieces of feedback. We could even, this just occurred to me, we could even attach the recordings to the meetings so that folks from HRC, AGO, members of the public who gave verbal feedback, folks could access that. So that's my first question for everyone. Do we want to work with the framework I have suggested, or would you like to go a different way? And I have no ego in this, like zero. Like last week I was like, pull this together. Like if you're like, Kim, we hate it, we want to start over, I'd be like, great. Who wants to write it? But I would support you entirely.
Thank you, Kim. Personally, I really appreciated the way that you set it up and with the themes. I think that's excellent. And again, I really like the idea of attaching, I think what you just said, like some of the recordings, as well as I think you said all the, right, every like community person, all the emails that we receive, having it attached separately, I think.
Yeah, then we could have it in the appendix. Like I put footnotes through, like basically like if you'd like to see the full summary, like Appendix A, Appendix B. So we haven't set it up that way, but we could and would, and we could have, Appendix C could be the hyperlinks to the recordings, something like that.
I think Lisa just raised her hand.
Thank you. Yeah, Kim, I know you put a ton of work in this, and I really appreciate it. I just want to say that. And I like the themes, how they are. I will go with the group, and I'm also not a voting member, but I'm just saying, I don't know if it's necessary to include links and things to the meetings. I mean, those meetings are always public anyway, but if we want to, I guess, hone in on it and start, letting folks know exactly where in the meeting to find comment about, like, I don't know if it's too much, but I'm happy to do what the group wants. The other thing that I was thinking, I noticed, I discussed this with Karen, or I'm sorry, not Karen, Kim and Daniel, was the only things I was wondering if we should actually quote were the specific, like some folks, a couple folks put specific language rewrites of specific parts of the policy on like it could say this. So I wonder if we should add that in somewhere, but I'd love to hear others.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I think Karen, your hand is up.
So I'm in agreement with everybody, and I'm really in agreement with everybody who's expressing gratitude for Kim for writing this report. And I would actually, I appreciate your comments. Like if somebody wants to rewrite it, go for it. But I think that would be a mistake for us to go back to the drawing board. When I'm thinking about are the intended audience for the report and the unintended audience for the report, right? And so what are the values that are undergirding the decisions about how we release this information? So what I see is that there will be, I think that there's going to be people that are going to want to do the deep dive. And I think that, but I don't think it's Kelly, I see you shaking your head, like the HRC, like, right? Like, and I think about some of the folks who've joined the meetings from the public, they'll want to do the deep dive. And they're not necessarily the intended audience of the report. So when I think about the intended audience of the report, I feel like less is more. But also for the folks that want to do the deep dive, we certainly can make the information available upon request. But I'm with Lisa. I'll go along with whatever this group decides.
Great, thank you, Karen. Kelly, your hand is up, I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so I agree, Karen, there are going to be people out there, and a lot of them like to come to our office that want to do the deep dive into all of the, which organizations did you talk to? What did they say? I know this particular guy said this thing at this meeting. Where is it? I think that's probably great, assuming that's not too burdensome. I wouldn't want someone to spend like an inordinate amount of time hyperlinking to all these, very esoteric sources. But no, I think the way that you have it set up, Kim, is fantastic. And I like the suggestion of like, for additional reading, for additional sources, please see these other things. And if you're not finding what you think you should find, contact this person, so because there absolutely are people that are doing this, they're really going in. So, I agree, Karen. But yeah, I really, I thought that it made sense, Kim, to have, the themes. There are, I think, a few people that were like outliers in terms of their feedback. I don't know if you want to just, they don't really fit into a theme, what we want to do with those folks, or just kind of briefly summarize it. But I fully agree with the way you have it set up. And thanks, Kim, for doing all this. It's a lot. That's all.
Susanna just joined. Sorry, Chris's hand is up.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I want to make a comment, but I will. I just want this committee to know, like, one, I appreciate all the work that goes into this and the time and the effort, and Kim, your work in drafting this report. I just want to remind the subcommittee's responsibility of the statutory requirement, which is just to review the policy, right, and make the recommendations. It's not your responsibility to report out every bit of information that has taken place over the years. And while I can appreciate Kelly's comments and those that might come to the HRC, I don't think it's the responsibility of this subcommittee to outline every document or where to find it, because quite often the arguments are always the same, or it's the same feedback from stakeholder groups. And sometimes even that feedback is erroneous or inaccurate information. So I think I just want you to be cognizant of the work that you've already done and what the responsibility of the subcommittee is. That's all. Thanks.
Director Burkell, I think, and Kelly, I don't mean to speak for you, so feel free to stop me, but I think Kelly was giving HRC as an example of in other areas that folks go and sort of want to do the deep dive, not that she was bringing in other comments from that HRC has gathered for this. Like she was just saying the idea of like having the information linked that she knows of individuals who would appreciate and like those links, but just as an example, not, is that right, Kelly, that you weren't saying like HRC has gathered info?
We get a lot of folks that come to us in an intake wanting to make a complaint, and they have, they're very, they've been looking through the internet for lots of things. So I guess I was just saying that there are those people out there that want all the public information to be made public. And if it's not public, they're revved up about it. So it's not that there are people banging down our door for this information. It's that I know for certain there are people out there, especially when it comes to police stuff, people really get revved up about it, even if, like you said, Chris, that it's, erroneous information. So it's one of those things, if it's out there, maybe it's not our main goal to get that out there, but if it's I think there's a benefit to it, if only to, have less questions of where's this information but yeah, you're right, Kim, that was what I meant, is just that there are folks that really like to know everything, or at least want to see it all.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Kelly. I don't think I was taking it the wrong way. My concern is that what I heard before, and you're right, is that all of these meetings have been public. All of those meetings are accessible. All of the documents that were worked on are accessible. So if you feel that it's worth this subcommittee's time to reframe that and somehow have a list of where all of those things are, great. But I don't know that you have all that amount of time to be doing that when it's all already out there in the public. And I don't know that it's the subcommittee's responsibility to collate all that and make it easier for somebody. And maybe you feel that it is. But I think that a lot of the meetings in prior iterations of the policy have been well attended and have been public, and all of that information is out there. But again, I'll stop there and leave it to you. If you feel like there's a better purpose of the subcommittee to put it all in one spot, then by all means, go right ahead.
Well, and just to frame my earlier comment, which again was off the cuff, I was only thinking to link our subcommittee's meetings about this specific review of this policy. I'm not going through like the archives. Like it would take me 3 minutes to link, the August meeting and the September meeting. And really, and I appreciate Karen's comment that we have two audiences. And if I was a council member, I know there are certain council members who, will like the summary, will like the top view, will, trust that our committee has reviewed this information and summarized it correctly. And there are a few who will want to double check, right? We'll want to look at the survey results. We'll want to look at the emails. And since there was verbal commentary, they might want to go watch that video. Like, so it's not a burdensome thing, but it shows the body of our work without having to quote everything in the main report. That was my thought there.
I'm glad to hear it only take you like 3 minutes. I feel like that kind of changes.
Yeah, to link the
cool.
recordings, it's
Yeah.
copying the link. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe 4
hurt.
minutes, maybe 4. Okay. Karen.
So this question might be out of bounds, but and Daniel, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you have a special meeting coming up this Wednesday night. And I know that things on your end of the FIP world are a little bit hot right now. Maybe warm is a better description, but I'm wondering if there's anything that we should be considering around this report and the timing of the release of the report in relationship to what's going on with your FIP committee.
In what capacity do you think it would impact it?
I have no idea. I just wanted to raise the question.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I wish I had an answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, the two FIPs exist. They don't overlap
Right.
a lot, but
Right.
but you're in a unique position right now. What I wouldn't want is for us to complicate that unnecessarily until you have the opportunity to get through whatever it is you got to get through this week.
No, I hear that. I appreciate that. I think that this coming meeting will probably bring some resolution. So I'm guessing whatever goes forward with this, it shouldn't have an impact, but I'm not
Okay.
psychic.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And Karen, that raises a thought that had been in my head, but I hadn't said out loud yet. Ideally, and I think I mentioned this in my email, if we're able to run through the report, the draft today and get it to a place where the committee feels like, yes, this is, except for a little cleanup, this is ready to go. We approve the draft form. We finalize it, we circulate it amongst the committee, but ideally we're able to send this report to the council for their November meeting. So we have sort of 2 weeks to finish that work if the committee feels like we're in a place to do that by the end of this meeting. That would be ideal. And then the council would have the November meeting and then the December meeting if they needed to discuss it. Okay, so if we keep the format, which it sounds like folks are comfortable with, were there areas that you wish were, and we'll get into the specific themes and the recommendations, that's like really the meat of our work today to make sure we captured all the themes and then hear your recommendations. Were there areas that you wished were expanded or simplified, like either the introduction or the summaries for AGO or Human Rights Commission? And Kelly, especially, I'm going to look to you to make sure I captured that, whether any of that feels like it should be expanded or simplified. I can.
Well, I just wanted to jump in while I had it on my mind, and I think your summary about my comments is fine, but the phrase that that a lot of people have been advocating for, of like, nothing in this policy is intended to violate the federal law. I'm perplexed about it. What, like, is that's not gonna absolve us of not being in compliance with it. I guess I'm just wondering what the utility is of that sentence, because it doesn't, I don't see it as offering anything, and I'm just kind of confused. Maybe I'm missing something with that. Would that change things in the mind of somewhat, where is this coming from? I don't know if somebody can help me with that.
Kelly, I think at least two folks said exactly that phrase. And so we wanted to make sure we were capturing themes. This came up more than once in what folks were giving feedback on. And maybe we need to flush it out a little more as far as pinpointing where in the policy that revision would be. But Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, and committee members who were part of the last review, Karen, Susanna, definitely Susanna, jump in if I don't get this exactly right. But so that phrase, Kelly, was in previous to our last update of the policy. Some communities had simplified the earlier policy and had removed the names of the federal statutes from the policy and had that one sentence in the introduction of the policy. And it was referred to as the Winooski model. And so the last review group that had been one of the FIP subcommittee's recommendations was to have that language in and not have the federal statutes specifically mentioned. And so that had been one of the three recommendations that did not pass the council during the last review. And not to go too deep in, but part of it is that sense you're getting, Kelly, that sentence wouldn't take away if folks were violating the federal law. And that was the whole big discussion in 2024 with the policy. So a lot of people
answered my question. I was just like, why are so many people saying this? It doesn't. So thank you. That was really like, where is this coming from that so many people have said this? So thanks, Kim. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's important to note, like, a number of folks feel like that was the wrong decision. Feel like the council did not get that right and are continuing to advocate for that language. All right. So back to, and I can pull it up, probably makes sense for me to share right now. I have so much open on my computer. I'm like a little terrified to share my screen. So let's make this not awful for you all. Sorry. All right. Can everyone see? Okay. Great. The introduction was kept pretty short and sweet. One, and this goes a little bit, I think, to Karen's earlier statement, or at least it popped into my head again. I don't know if we want a sentence or two sort of reflecting on just fair and impartial policing in general, or sort of noting the difficulties of the time. I didn't put that. I kept this very like just straightforward and factual. I don't know if that's necessarily correct. So if there are any suggestions for either in the introduction, or if we wanted, a conclusion, some sort of statement at the end, throwing it out to the committee, whether you wanted more in this introduction. It's pretty bare bones. Kelly?
I was gonna say, get right to it, short and sweet. Love that. I think that's fine. We don't need to do a whole long preamble. We know what we're talking about.
And I can't see everyone with my sharing my screen. So Daniel, if you see anyone, can you just call? Thanks. Any other thoughts on the introduction?
Kim, I just put it in the chat, but there's just a
Oh.
typo. August 11th should say 2025.
Oh, where did I took us
There's something
well.
in there.
I don't think any of us wish to be working on the FIP subcommittee in 20,205. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna keep moving along, but if as we're moving along, if someone has a thought about an earlier section, just shout it out. The review process, again, we kept this pretty straightforward. This Lisa had a question or two, whether we wanted more of a narrative here. So that's a question for the group of the work that Lisa did for the outreach. I mean, we could create a paragraph about the creation of the survey, thoughts and intention going into it. Who, again, like how, I didn't know how much we wanted to get into, like how many times Lisa had reached out to organizations, but one note, and I put a footnote, was that we were going to attach, a copy of Lisa's emails to the organizations. And I don't know if we need to do every single one, Lisa, or whether we do like a example of kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
the blank survey.
I think it's fine. I think I sent you, maybe I didn't, but I can check. Just a PDF of what the email outreach said.
I think you did.
As well as the Survey Monkey, like a blank survey. So I think that will suffice. I mean, I don't know how helpful it'd be to name how many times I reached out to folks and et cetera.
Any strong feelings from committee members?
I just wanted to say, I think that's a fantastic idea to list out all the organizations. I don't know about necessarily including all the emails, but I love that all the organizations are listed, because it shows the public that we're reaching the public. Way to go, Lisa. But also, sorry, that was a bad joke. But also, if people come back to us and say, well, why wasn't I included? You could say, well, you were, but we didn't hear from you, or we reached out, so I think that's great for a lot of different reasons, for proactive reasons and for, protecting yourself reasons, so.
Did we miss any organizations? Lisa, oh, sorry, Karen, your hand's up.
And I just in terms of the amount of information that we provide, I think there's a couple things on my mind. One of the things is trying to find that right balance between providing information in a transparent and meaningful way and finding that just enough, and really creating energy toward kind of the real outliers and their desire for more and more information. And I think that we have to know that we went into this with the best intentions. And
Right.
And folks, there are going to be some folks, just a few, who no matter what are going to examine all of this with a lens of where can I find the one thing to focus on. And I think that we should try not to, we should know that that's going to happen and be prepared for it, but we don't have to like feed into it, if you know what I mean, like just trying to find that right balance. So I'm agreeing with Lisa around just an example of the email that was sent out. And the list speaks for itself. The list really speaks for itself, and our interest in hearing from groups that are really representing targeted populations. So, I mean, I think that the effort to get input was extraordinary, and we should stand behind it.
All right. Unless anyone has anything else for section 2, the review process, which includes the outreach, the methods, and again, we'll have items attached.
Kim, Daniel put in the chat, the Association
right.
of the Organization
Michaela
for Michaela,
Sims.
just so you have it, yeah.
Oh, good. Do you want to just tell me and I'll type it right now?
Sure, Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union Diversity Coordinator.
Wyndham Southeast Supervisory
Union
Divers-
Diversity Coordinator. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Section 3, are required consulting groups, Attorney General's Office and Human Rights Commission. I think I captured what Julio was telling us at the meeting, and I did review it a few times to try and get it right. And I'm going to I wanted to talk to the committee first, see if you all had comments or edits to this. And then after we're done, I was going to send this blurb to Julio just to say, you know, are we way off? Like, did we get it? Is there anything to add? All I can say is I think I have it. And I need to do a little cleanup like here for just saying this correctly, the section 6, B or C. So I can clean that up just to make sure we're referring to the right part of the policy. But did anyone have any different takeaways from Julio's presentation? All right. Kelly, it felt very odd to be summarizing. I was like, oh, maybe I should send Kelly this section. But did you want anything corrected? I wasn't sure if I got some of the
it's fine.
phrases correct,
Yeah, no,
but
it's absolutely fine. Yeah.
okay. Anyone in the committee, again, I want to be very, very aware, like my brain thinks in a certain way and it misses things. So did anyone hear anything from Kelly's representation of the Human Rights Commission that was not captured in this section? All right. Moving along. Community feedback. I started just typing these themes out as I was cross-referencing various things. There's definitely some wordsmithing to improve a few of these sentences, or not sentences, clauses. But right off the top, does anyone feel like a theme was missed? Like, did we miss something? And then we can go towards whether if there's any consolidating. But was anything missed? And I don't know. Yeah. Start here, and hopefully folks have it open with them and can scroll through. Daniel?
Yeah, I really think this section is fantastic. I really appreciate the way you put it together, and I think it's excellent. I'm a big fan of themes, and I think it really just lays out, what we notice. So I think it's more than sufficient.
I was running through this morning. I added this highlighted note that I could, and this last piece, I can put the 3 recommendations from last FIP subcommittee review that had not been adopted by the council. I can add that in on that last K. They are repeated up top, so that is somewhere that we could consolidate a bit. There's no way I batted 1,000. I have to be missing something here. All right.
Do we include the Essex County Sheriff's comments in public comment or as law enforcement comment?
It would be in this section because we said in addition to the public comments shared at September 8th, which is when Trevor Colby was there. So that's an excellent point. I do not think that his comments are reflected here. Would anyone want to take a crack at summarizing that for the draft?
Kim, I'll go back to the minutes and take a look. I mean, here's the thing, we're not capturing every single comment, we're capturing themes. So I want to note that. And with respect to Sheriff Colby, what we have in the minutes from the September 8th meeting was that he made a case that an immigration policy should be separate from FIP. He raised that he feels the FIP policy is intentionally protecting people here illegally, which he said is the opposite of a fair and impartial policing policy. I mean, there's a lot of things he said. He said he wasn't suing us. He said all these different things. So again, I don't want to isolate, and it's not because who it is, but if we're going to get in the habit of going comment for comment, then we will probably need to go back and do that for everybody. So those are my thoughts.
That's
Karen's
a
hand is up.
great point. Yeah, and I see Karen's hand up, and I think I can't remember if it was Kelly who used that or Karen who said outlier before, like that maybe, I don't know if we need like a separate section for additional comments that don't fall into any of the themes. Like, would we want to reflect that in some way? But Karen, your hand's up.
I just agree with everything that Lisa just said. I also want to point out that so I'm not a member of the law enforcement community, as you know, but if that's the law enforcement leader we're gonna quote on the fair and impartial policing, because I don't think his opinion is shared by many law enforcement leaders. So I don't I think it's for me that's an outlier comment. Probably enough said.
So I guess if, and again, I can't see all the hands. So if anyone's about to raise their hand, I wonder if we then would want, another, like a sentence or two up top of, just framing that part of like, we received, again, all this information, we have pulled out these common themes or these, something along the lines so that when someone that we did not fit into this list is like, hey, you didn't mention what I said, we can say why, or or somehow, like I'm using the term theme, but like what does that mean for anyone? Like whether we want, I can probably word this a little better up top to capture, where we were seeing commonalities or I can't think of the word right now. So that it makes sense that when someone's looking through the raw data, they're like, they didn't mention this, they didn't mention this. If there's one-off comments.
Kim, I'm just jumping in. I think that makes really good sense. I also think that it's important for us to differentiate between just kind of spitting out information and talking about the information that we gathered that will actually result in action.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I think, Kim, if you just maybe add the following themes and commonalities emerge just to kind of re-emphasize that point of themes and what was common might help clarify.
Okay.
And again, if we're going to provide the links to the recordings, it's there.
And maybe that's maybe it's in the footnote that I say, something like I can't think but something along the lines of like, additional comments and statements were provided by the public not captured above, like please see the raw data, something to that effect. And then when we're presenting the report, we can explain like we pulled out, what we thought were what Karen said, things that the council can actually kind of look at and work with, deal with. We'll think of better language before November to say that, but I'll add more to this footnote here.
And Kim, if I could just real quickly jump in, I found some notes from what Sheriff Colby said, and there was a lot there, but he also just said the policy is confusing, and we did address that at one point, so at least, that's a theme without maybe highlighting an outlier, which is kind of what I'm hearing, and I think that's a wise path.
Okay. Okay, so if we don't think anything's missing right now from the themes, do we want to consolidate this list? There is some repetition here and there. Any suggestions from folks? Would the committee be comfortable with me finalizing it? Like if I see like like I might like combine two and like make it cleaner and simpler if as long as they're the same theme.
Thank you, Kim. That sounds really good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then again, if what we could do today is we kind of as a committee approve this draft, then we can clean it up and again send it around so folks, and I know it's hard reading and commenting in real time, folks can take another look at it to make sure they're comfortable with it before it goes to the council. Okay, the super fun part everybody's been waiting for because they wrote up their recommendations on Friday or over the weekend and are very excited. So don't all speak at once. I noted 2 recommendations just coming off of Julio's comments. sort of addressing what he said here. And that was just getting my brain going of how this might work. But as I said in my email, I didn't want to go any further because I didn't want to steer the committee in any particular way. So regarding, we can start with Julio's comments and my suggested recommendations here, or we can just start throwing out things that you would like to recommend to the council. And again, this is recommending, like, we can have it in, sorry, let me back up. We're recommending to the council, big picture, whether or not there's any updates needed for the policy. If we think there's a policy update, we need to put that specifically in the recommendations. If we think there are things for the council or for the subcommittee or for the academy to think on, consider, work on, separate from updating the policy, I think it's appropriate for us to put that in here. Like, we've heard this information. We think the policy needs X, Y, or Z, or we don't think the policy needs anything right now, but we think other, like, we can have a few different tracks going here.
Yeah, Karen's hand's raised, I believe.
Yeah.
One of the themes that we've heard over and over again is the policy is difficult to understand, difficult to, the policy itself. And I, I have to admit, as a non-legal mind, it actually makes my teeth hurt to read it. I feel completely inadequate in my understanding of the policy itself. And Lisa has pushed out so much information, videos, trainings to help folks be able to understand the details and the nuances of the policy. I wonder if it makes sense just to acknowledge that the policy is written in some pretty significantly detailed legal language, and that there are resources available for folks to help them understand that if they're not of a legal mind.
Thank you, Karen. Lisa, your hand is raised too.
Muted, sorry. Thanks, Daniel, and thanks, Karen. For me, I think, again, it's like I'm trying to think about the immediacy of any recommendations or changes, right? I think what the HRC has said is really, really, really important. I would like to see that as a policy change. I don't know that it is it is the timing now that needs to be done, but I just want to put out there that I do feel strongly that we should be thinking about people of other identities and folks with disabilities, folks with different identities being included in this policy, and that's really important to me.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I see, yeah, Kelly.
Yeah, so do we want to, trying to think of a intelligent way of saying, want to recommend to the council that we consider ways to enlarge the policy to include, I agree, Lisa, maybe, and Kim, I seem to be sharing your lack of like, what are the words? But something to indicate that we want to be thoughtful about enlarging it and to include as many people as possible without giving somebody like more work to do and referencing additional outreach or something like that. But I would absolutely support something along those lines of asking folks to keep in mind how we can make it more inclusive.
Director Patel, your hand
Chris?
is raised.
Yeah, I have a question because I haven't attended all these meetings. So I hear anecdotally in different arenas, and I don't know if any of this subcommittee heard it, was that there should be two policies, right? There should be a fair and impartial policing policy, and there should be an immigration policy. Was that ever a comment that was brought up to this subcommittee? And if so, was it worthy of entertaining as future discussion for the council to take a look at?
I know we have talked about it in the subcommittee. Other than Sheriff Colby making that comment, I don't know if any other public comments were collected on it, but we've talked about it as a subcommittee, and that might be some future work for the council to consider, like whether at some point, especially if we are looking to expand it, at some point, does it just get too unwieldy and needs to become separate policies? But then there's
I think-
statutory changes that would need to happen as well, so.
Yeah,
it's-
I just
it's
constantly
complicated.
hear that since the initial policy was done, that they should have been two separate policies, and that just, it seems to me that the more that everyone tries to focus on making this an all-encompassing policy that works for everybody, it just makes it more difficult and more challenging, and at sometimes pits those that are most impacted by the policy against the law enforcement officers that are required to carry it out and not violate it. So I just wonder whether it ever makes sense to, have a suggestion to the council for a future look at a separate immigration policy that impacts only immigration issues, and then a separate fair and impartial policing policy that they'll probably still intertwine at some intersection, but something that simplifies so that both sides essentially feel better. That's all.
Thank you. I see Karen and I think Wesley have hands raised.
I've talked a lot, so I want to yield to Wesley, but I would love it if you would come back to me, Daniel.
Wes, you're
You're
muted.
on mute.
Thank you. Just speaking from a law enforcement standpoint and kind of the end user of the policy on that end of things, as we try to be more inclusive and add more verbiage, it becomes so cumbersome, and it's already so cumbersome. I think there's so many policies for law enforcement officers to try to navigate and remember, that we just being really mindful of that the harder things are for law enforcement on the end user, the harder it is to understand the policy and to be able to implement the policy, right? And I think there are ways we can be inclusive in kind of broader strokes without trying to pigeonhole little tiny groups into the policy. And I think the policy already does that to a fair degree. And yeah, I think we want to be cautious about creating too much verbiage and confusion.
Thank you for those comments, Wesley, and I think Karen, back to you.
Well, I appreciate those comments, Wesley. What I'm thinking about are the root causes here, that there, we're talking about root causes around bias. And I want to state that bias exists in all of us, regardless of what our day jobs are. And what we're doing is we're asking our law enforcement officers to understand how bias impacts their interactions with the public, and how that bias can actually, for certain groups, can really present some significant impacts. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We're all in agreement with this. So I almost feel like there's a way for us to like set a foundation and then talk about the biases in different ways. But I do agree with you, Wesley, on one point is that we will always miss a certain group. If we start listing out all the groups, we'll miss a certain group. So that's why I think it's really important for us to lay the foundation. And I think this policy does this, to lay the foundation around the reasons that we have a policy like this. And, we could have a policy like this in my work too. There's, actions that we take that that demonstrate implicit bias, that demonstrate overt bias. And we're working to deal with that in our work. So I think that, for me, the folks who are talking about this is an immigration policy and we need a separate immigration policy, I think we should be really thoughtful about that in these times. What's in the back of my mind always is how do we find the way to, to quote Sheriff Colby, protect people while not creating undue targets. And we know that, we spend a lot of time talking about this policy and its relationship to federal law. And during that entire conversation, I kept thinking federal law as it stands today, that federal law could change and we could be really out of compliance quite quickly with federal law. And so I think we should just know that. And I think that we should, I think we should really listen to folks that are saying, this seems like an immigration policy. Is this the same as fair and impartial policing policy? And that's a great conversation for us to have going forward. But I also think we have to keep in mind the why we have this policy. Thank you.
Other recommendations? I think the one big question for our committee, and I think I've sensed the committee's feelings on this, but I think we need to chat about it and state it clearly in our recommendations, is whether or not the policy needs an update for this review. Or whether, like, are there things we want updated now, or are these things, or are there issues that need to be thought about and considered and possible updates later, or both? Again, there could be like some little technical changes or otherwise. It feels like during our conversations that at least nothing has stood out that anyone thinks needs to be updated, as of January 1. But we as a committee need to decide that.
Kelly's got a hand.
Kelly?
I just wanted to weigh in and say, I know that that a lot of funds were expended to translate the policy into a lot of different languages. And, my recollection, my involvement with the subcommittee is that we didn't see anything that we wanted to go into, anything substantive to fix or update or change. So I would encourage that, all of us try to think of what going forward we can do. So when we have the next update, we really do any substantial changes then. So we can, make sure that it's still, the policy is still current in all the other languages that it was translated into. And I think it just makes sense, like, this is a new policy. Law enforcement still being trained on it, still being rolled out. I think it makes sense to wait and gather more information, see what works, what doesn't, before we make, additional changes. So I am in favor of not changing the policy right now.
One other thing I wanted to mention to the committee that I was thinking about this morning is the council's requirement to review the policy every 2 years and make updates if necessary. That's required, that review every 2 years. That does not take away the ability for the council to update the policy and in between those reviews. Like, so that's written so that we don't let 3, 4, 5 years go by and not like pull it out and take a look at it. So that was on my mind this morning when I was reviewing the themes. A number of the themes, again, are issues that the council grappled with for 2024 review. Nothing has changed state or federal law yet. To Karen's point, something could change, and we could be pulling ourselves back together real quick to be like, whoa, big change. We need to update the policy because of that. Since, at least for now, nothing has changed. I personally wouldn't see why we would be saying an update is necessary to the council. The issues remain, the issues are there for us to grapple with, but there has not been any statutory changes that would change where the council would come out on those particular issues. And by that, I mean, the phrasing of the federal statutes and how much agencies can, the additional restrictions that agencies can have in their policies. But if something does change on the landscape 3 months, 6 months from now, we don't have to wait till 2028 to suggest changes to the council.
Thank you, Kim. That's really, really helpful.
Any strong feelings opposing what Kelly said? Does anyone feel like there does need to be an update that we should recommend to the council? I'll probably reorder these a bit, and this is going to be very sort of shorthand, just looking at the clock. I'm going to be, again, written a little nicer than that. Other things, though, that we want the council or the academy or our subcommittee to be working on, thinking on, considering, given the feedback we received, like anything we'd want to add to this list of recommendations to the council.
I wonder if we want to say something along the lines of what you just said, Kim, in terms of, and it may not be in the list of recommendations, but just in terms of this is the statutory or whatever required review, but the work of the FIP is to continuously review this policy and its impact on Vermonters and in the law enforcement community.
And maybe that's a nice conclusion there. Sorry, this will be a little sloppy. Essentially noting, yeah, this is the statutory review, nothing prevents the council or and I'll make this better, but I just want to capture that thought, Karen. And I'll add a sentence, something like, the FIP subcommittee, looks forward to working on any, blah, 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 that if the council takes on any of our recommendations, like we look forward to working on those with the council, something like that. You're seeing how bad I type. I'll fix that and make that pretty. Any other, now that we've sort of worked our way through, aside from wordsmithing a little bit, making this a little cleaner, I'll add all of our names to the bottom. And definitely want to make sure Lisa's in here because she's done so much work supporting our committee and supporting this review. Any other big picture thoughts or little things that are bothering you? Otherwise, I'll clean it up, send it out to everyone. Sorry.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, and thanks, Daniel. I was just gonna say, Kim, as far as the things to include in the appendix, just like shoot me an email if you're missing something. I think I got it all to you, but if you also want me to resend it in just one big folder, I can do that too. Whatever makes it easier for you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm definitely gonna need eyes to cross-check that the appendix lines up and that we have everything, and just kind of do a little quality control around that. When we send it out to the committee, we'll send it out with the appendix so that everyone can also do their due diligence. The more eyes on it, the more likely we'll pick up something. So that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. And my last question was, did Greg and or Glenn have anything to add or comment on?
No, I did not receive any comments from members who are not able to attend today. No.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all. We'll send this around and yeah, appreciate it. And again, if anyone's brain is like mine and will wake up at 1 a.m. tonight, like, I wish I had said whatever, please just send an email directly to me, and I can note it in what I circulate highlighted. So like if there's something different in the report, folks can see it. Like if it's some new thought that we haven't had in here, I don't want to slip something in into a final copy, but if there's something that you're like, oh, I would hate for this to be missed, please send it my way. And if we have to send this draft around twice to get to final, that's fine. So don't hesitate if something pops into your brain. Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We are
Thank
just
you.
so lucky to have you on the subcommittee. Thank you for this fantastic work. I am noticing we're going a little bit over. We still have the next agenda item, resource toolkit. Lisa, should we jump in on this?
Yeah, let's just do it. I can be very, very quick. Just a friendly nudge and reminder that that FIP resource toolkit is up, and Kelly, thank you for submitting what you have as far as accessibility. And I would really encourage other subcommittee members to contribute to this resource toolkit. If you have specific questions, you can email me. But again, I just want to keep the momentum, just because we've we're near to completing this FIP policy review, our work doesn't stop. So I want to make sure that we're still putting eyes on what we need to. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. Our next and last item on our agenda for today, motion to adjourn. We made it. Is there a motion to adjourn for the day?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, thanks, Karen. And we need a second, I believe, for Robert's rules. Is there a second motion?
A
Kim,
second.
all right. Again, it's always an honor to see you all. Thank you for all the hard work. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.